Hello, my drunken Buddhas. A lot of the time in relationships, we're not fully being ourselves. And the ways we're doing this is not always obvious. For many of us, we've been doing it for so long, it feels like who we are, and that's our authentic self. But it's really not, and we're actually paying a price in the sense of our disconnection from ourself and the lack of deeper connection we could have with others if we were being more ourselves. A quick note that it's not always safe or recommended to be fully yourself, but there might be some situations where it's genuinely unsafe to expose yourself. But I'm not talking about that. Most of the time, social situations are safe to be ourselves, but there's an internal unsafety that comes in that's preventing us from doing so. I'll talk more about that at the end. Let's get into the 7 signs that we're not fully being ourselves. So number 1 is that social interaction is draining. So have you ever had that feeling, you leave a party or a social gathering and just, I used to just melt as I'd leave a party and just something in me, in my chest would just open and soften because I'd been holding myself in. And what's happening is that it's really exhausting to have some idea in your head of how you're supposed to be and to try and push yourself to be that way and continuously monitoring other people to see if they're responding in the way you need them to. And that's what a lot of us are doing in our social, in these social situations. We're not just being however it is we are, maybe I'm grumpy and tired tonight and that's cool. We're trying to be a certain way, and that is what is draining, or trying to get a certain response. And it's not the social interaction itself that is necessarily what's doing it. It's our own kind of way we're relating to it. The second one is when we're performing. We're instead of really being ourselves. And again, like I just said, some days you might be, I'm just tired and grumpy today. And I'm just going to kind of be that, hang out with my friends and just be a bit tired and grumpy, and I'll let them know that, and they can laugh at me, and that's cool. But there's a sense, that's not allowed. It's not allowed, or it feels unsafe. Like if I'm not being funny, if I'm not getting laughs, that means that they don't like me, or that I'm not welcome in some way. Many of us, we carry deep wounds, relational wounds from our childhood, and there's a sense, completely innocent, but unhelpful perhaps, that we need continuous sense of validation or approval. And we perform to get that. And it works in the short term, which is why so many of us do it. It kind of feels like it works, but we have to do it again. Every time you meet someone, you're just doing it again and again. It's tiring. And so it's helpful to make this conscious so we can begin to sort of work at that unsafety underneath it, so we can start to feel more like ourselves. The third sign is that you can't fully relax. There's tension in the body. Maybe you notice there's a bit of hypervigilance. Your eyes are kind of scanning around quickly. You're paying a lot of attention to what everyone else is doing and how they're relating to you. Something just doesn't feel quite right. And again, this is kind of the body coming in to monitor the situation. It's like, I'm not safe here. I need to be on guarded, physically. So I can, sometimes the throat constricts, so you don't say certain things. You might go more quiet. And, there's that vigilance in the eyes and the attention that's looking around to see how everyone's responding to you. Am I safe? Am I safe? Which, again, is, that develops over time because we would have grown up in situations where we needed that to be safe. But it's maybe no longer as helpful as it was. The fourth sign is that we try to manage how other people feel. Rather than leaving that to them, it's like, well, how they feel is their responsibility. There's, you might be asking people like, are you mad? Are you okay? Is everything fine? More than is strictly necessary. Again, that's some part of us that feels uncertain, that needs that kind of reassurance. It's like, no, we're okay. We're okay in relationship. Again, this comes from those deep childhood wounds, which are so tragic, but it plays out later in life, even with people, who are, we're in a safe, secure relationship, but that need to manage and make sure the other person is a certain way, because it feels so unsafe if they're maybe angry at us or there's some slight rupture in the relationship, and we're kind of expecting that continuously, and we see everything through that lens. We're just seeing potential rupture, potential upset in everything that they do, and it might not actually be there. And then we're continuously trying to manage and control them, and they can feel that as well. That's the thing, they can feel that, and it actually creates more disconnect. If you're fine and someone's continually asking, are you okay, you start to become not okay. So another one is that you get defensive easily. So small things, little comments. Next time, can you not leave not leave the window open or whatever? But feels like a personal attack, and we can get very defensive very quickly. And this is kind of a slightly subtler one. It's like, how is that related to not really being ourselves? Because it's that behavior is a protection, and we're holding back what's really going on. It's like actually we feel hurt in some way, and that's the authentic truth that, if shared, very often helps other people to understand where you're at. So actually, when you say those things, it brings up a lot of hurt. It feels like I'm not good enough. I've done something wrong. That's sort of the authentic. That's you being yourself. You're clearly expressing what's actually there, but that can feel really painful to go towards, right? Understandably so. And just as soon as that hurt comes up, criticism is the way some of us have learned to defend ourselves. Defending us, getting defensive is the way that we've learned to defend ourselves. And we might start going, hey, you left the window open last week, or how do you expect me to close all the windows? I barely have time in between cooking and cleaning, whatever it is. But this is another sign that actually we're not able to fully be ourselves, that the more hurt or vulnerable side of ourselves doesn't feel safe to allow or express. The sixth one is sort of the opposite, or could be seen as similar depending on how it expresses, but getting irritated easily or getting resentful easily. So we're quite sensitive to perceived slights, or if there's a slight bit of rupture, again, we might get aggressive or angry, which is a similar situation to the defensiveness. It's like there's hurt there, but it feels way too intense, scary, unsafe to put that hurt on the table, have it seen by others. When we were small, maybe we expressed our hurt and we were ridiculed or we were ignored, and that was so painful that we can't go there again. And we learn to instead get angry and sort of protect ourselves in that way. But again, this is not really what's going on. It's not the truth, so it's not authentic. And it disconnects us from ourselves, and it disconnects us from other people. And that's what we're trying to resolve here. The last sign is that you go quiet or shut down or hold things back. So you'll notice that in groups of people, for example, you might just go much quieter, or there's certain people around whom you stop really feeling like yourself, and you just go quiet. I notice this quite a lot. There's certain places and friends around which I'm flowing, I'm playful, I'm joyful, and then other spaces, it's with certain people who I find more triggering. I notice myself becoming very quiet and introverted, almost regressing. I almost feel like a younger version of Ben. It's quite interesting to observe. And of course, there's going to be a natural fluctuation. Like, you're not going to be the same with your best friends as you are in a job interview, or waiting on a train platform talking to the person who's waiting for the train next to you. But there's an extra, there's a difference between changing your behavior a bit to suit the situation and feeling genuinely unsafe to be yourself, to express. And this is just one way you can notice it, right? Just notice that volume going down, the amount that you're speaking going down, the amount that you reveal. You maybe don't share your opinions or your thoughts or what's going on for you, your feelings in certain situations. So that sort of brings us to the end of those 7 signs. And again, I want to reiterate, there will be places and spaces and people around, who are genuinely unsafe. And in those cases, it makes total sense that we wouldn't completely be ourselves. That's how we protect ourselves. do that. That's great. But most of the time, it's actually this internal unsafety. That's kind of the inauthenticity we're holding within. There is unprocessed fear and unprocessed hurt within us from our childhood that it feels like we can't go near. It's like, if I put my hurt on the table, I'm going to get hurt even more back. If I put my fear on the table, then I'm going to be seen as vulnerable and attacked, or, hurt in some way. Because we've had that experience in the past, we just sort of project it onto all these other situations, and then we're not able to fully be ourselves in the way that we want to, right? Because when you're being yourself, there's a kind of a flow to it, right? When you're not, there's a roboticness. It feels tight, rigid, robotic, very cognitive. You're trying to figure out everything you're trying to say rather than just going with life. And so the real key to slowly unlocking this is working to build safety in the body. I've got a video on that. You can check it out. I think it's called How to Create Safety in the Body, and process the unprocessed fear and hurt that we hold. And I've got lots of videos on that. You can check out How to Feel Your Feelings, for example. So I do work one-on-one with people, helping them to do this work. So check that out in the links below if you're interested. And I will see you soon. Bye.